Hey guys, so with today's Legends information broadcast, we do now have some concrete information on what the new supporter system is going to look like. It does seem pretty cool. I think there's going to be a very big controversy surrounding this in a few areas, which of course we will get into in this video. I just want to preface this by saying we still don't fully understand everything about this mechanic. If it ends up being bad and it ends up not being, well thought out, cohesive, whatever, I will criticize it harshly, okay? I always do this. I always like to wait until we have the full implementation of whatever the new mechanic is going to be before I, jump off the rails and start going ham on everything, which I will do. I will not hold back. But I don't want to be overly aggressive here. I don't want to jump the gun until we actually get this in game and we can test it out for ourselves and see really what we're working with. But we can give an initial reaction to what we see here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let the this video play. We can just kind of mute it as it goes through here. It introduces the concept of the supporter system, and the first supporter they give us here is Dende, which doesn't surprise me. They kind of are doing what I think they were going to do with the system. And I think the main function that they're trying to accomplish with this, besides making us summon more, is they're trying to get characters into the game that really weren't able to be brought into the game in a traditional sense. Characters like Dende, characters like King Kai, characters like Elder Kai, Zeno, Grand Priest, any character that doesn't really fight. I don't know, like Ox King, Bulma from like Namek Bulma or something. I don't know. Characters who don't actually participate in battles in Dragon Ball, but are still relatively important, still have some role to fulfill in the actual story, that I think they just want to get into the game to have representation for those characters in the game in some way. That really, to me, is why they're making this a feature, a mechanic in the game. So, of course, the first character they're using here is Dende, who doesn't fight, but he does provide a pivotal role in the Frieza saga, where he's healing everybody up. He essentially serves to give Vegeta multiple Zenkai buffs during the Frieza saga. Essentially serves as like a Zenkai battery for Vegeta. Dude, Dende was Zenkai buffing Vegeta the entire Frieza saga. Dende carried Vegeta throughout the Frieza saga. So they are getting Dende in here. And something that I really like here is they actually do pull up some footage here. We can see we have Kid Gohan versus second form Frieza. And here on the side, there is an image of Dende. And there's a number 2 next to that. I assume what that means. They don't really explain this too well. It's going to pertain to whatever the mechanics are that are specific to the supporter, I guess. As it says here, when conditions are met, some effects will activate, and you'll see in a second here, Dende comes in, this 2 drops to a 1, and Gohan does end up getting healed here. So Frieza does attack Gohan a bunch, the combo ends, and then Dende will come in, and there's actually an animation that plays for this. So we are going to have in-battle, like, special animations for these supporter characters. Dende will restore health when it falls below a certain level, and you'll see he heals by 500k. I mean, that was like a 40% HP heal or something. Here we have some illustration changes as the character levels up. We'll get to how they level up later, because that I think is going to be the biggest area of controversy, but there are different illustrations for these supporters. So the first one is just the basic character himself. It's almost like a render of the character. Then we have the background filled in with Namek. And then I assume what's going to happen is we get like more effects, and then maybe potentially the last level of the character maybe even has like moving animations for the art. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but there are different levels of the illustration that change depending on the actual level of the character that you have for the supporter. Various characters will be joining the fray, and this does release in September. So we are still, 2.5, 3 weeks away from this actually being introduced. I think this will be introduced probably on the 3rd of September, which kind of sucks for me because I am actually going to be going back to the US for a few weeks in September. Still going to be able to do videos, still going to have my mobile setup that everybody loves, but I'm not going to have as accessible time in the US. So I'm going to still get stuff done there, but I'm going to be a little bit more sparse with my scheduling during September. So I'm again, still going to get videos out, still going to cover everything, but it's just going to be maybe not immediately when everything drops, but I'll do my best. So yeah, Dende is coming out here in September. Again, probably the 3rd. We'll see. I'm not exactly sure when it's coming out. It could be whenever the next LF character drops, but let's see what else they say here about the supporters. So what are supporters? Characters that appear during battle to provide beneficial effects. So of course, Dende makes sense. He's healing the characters because that is literally what he does in the Frieza saga and basically throughout the entire series is he heals. So it makes sense for Dende to come in, heal a character that's low on health, and that's what he does. But I imagine as you get the character leveled up, he's probably going to be providing other effects besides just healing. Could be things like healing you and gives you a Dragon Ball. Healing you and lowers ally sub counts by 10. Healing you and makes you immune to attribute downgrades for the next 30 count. Just, I don't know, just spitballing here, but there's going to be probably other effects stacked on top of that depending on what level the character actually is. So here is Dende, new supporter system coming. Dende arrives, a supporter that can heal allies in battle. Again, his illustration is going to change depending on what level the character is going to be. Whatever the illustrations are going to be for the level 3 and level 4, I guess we'll find out later. Supporters levels range from 1 to 99. Supporters level up when you obtain a certain number of copies of that supporter. Level up your supporters to strengthen their abilities. And they certainly get into how you level them up later, which is going to be quite interesting to see. So, yeah, they have 99 levels. I think they just, like, you don't actually manually train the character. As you get more copies of the character, they will just automatically gain levels. All right, what else we got here? We can just kind of forward this at this point. So here's the illustrations that change. They're not going to show us the other ones. We'll have to wait and see once the data download hits what they're going to be. So this is the core function here. This is the supporter deck. New exclusive deck made up of 6 supporters. You can set up a different support deck for each of your battle parties. This is going to be extremely important as we get into the Z abilities and things like that, but you actually have, I thought what they were going to do is they were just going to have 1/7 slot for each team to put a supporter on. They're giving you 6. So we essentially have 12 character slots to work with. We have our 6 battle member slots that you have in your party, and then you have an entirely different, is what it sounds like, 6 supporter slots. So you got 6 battle member slots, and then you have 6 supporter slots. And what they also said is you choose your battle members first, and then you choose your supporters. So you can kind of see what the characters your opponent are going to bring, and then you can choose the supporters you want to bring after you see what the opponent is bringing. So there could be instances where there's going to be certain supporters that serve to function as maybe even targeted counters towards certain characters. So let's just say, for example, the opponent is bringing Ultra Full Power Frieza. Once you see that your opponent is bringing Ultra Full Power Frieza into the fight, maybe there's a supporter that has an effect where once your opponent uses an active gauge, they lose 2 cards from their hand or something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but maybe there's a supporter where every time your opponent uses their active gauge, the Grand Priest will come down and like chop them on the neck, and they lose 2 of their cards. Right? So maybe the opponent, once you see that they're bringing Ultra Full Power Frieza, you can say, okay, I know this guy's going to be spamming his active gauge. Let me bring the Grand Priest as my supporter, and then I'll have my anti-Full Power Frieza effect up throughout the entire fight. That's potentially what this could look like, right? Because they specifically went out of their way to mention that you choose your supporter once the opponent and you have chosen your team, so you can see what the characters are that you're going to be fighting against. So it's going to be almost like a targeted counter system towards the characters your opponents have, which could be interesting. It adds a lot of different layers to the game. So I think that could be cool. You choose one of your 6 supporters to join the battle as your deployed supporter. So your other 5 supporters will no longer be playing any role in the fight. There is one other thing they're doing though, which we'll get to later. Now let's keep going here. Supporters have 2 kinds of abilities: support ability and support Z ability. I don't know how much of a fan I am of the support Z ability, but we'll get into that in a sec. Support ability. So this is what we've talked about already. A supporter's individual ability that activates in battle when certain conditions are met if the supporter is deployed. So they have to be the supporter that you actually choose to bring into the fight. You have, again, a supporter deck of 6 different supporters. That does not mean that all 6 of those supporters will be actually contributing with their in-battle effects to activate in the middle of the fight. That's not what that means. You pick one that will have their in-battle effects activated in the middle of the fight. Dende has a recovery ability, but characters with various other effects will be released. Look forward to it. And then they have the special animations, which you can see again here. So I actually think this is really cool. We're going to see characters like King Kai come in and maybe like tell a joke or something in the middle of the fight. Like I do like stuff like this because it adds a lot of just extra layers to the game. A lot of extra flair to the game. I mean, look at this. Like it's an actual animation. And the thing that's pretty good about this is they don't have to go out of their way and spend exorbitant resources developing these characters, because really I think what it's going to be is it's just going to be like a little, 3, 4, 5 second animation for these characters that come in, do their effect, and then they leave. Right? That's what it's going to be. So at most, it's really just going to be developing the models for the characters, but we already have models for characters like Farmer with a shotgun, for example, so they can maybe bring him in as a supporter. Maybe he's like, shotguns the opponent, maybe hits them with like, I don't know, like, imagine if he fainted the opponent. Farmer with a shotgun comes in and faints the opponent every, I don't know, 60 counts or something. But yeah, this is cool. I do think this is well done. This is pretty much what I expected out of this mechanic, to be honest, with the in-game animations. All right, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so this is the part where I'm a little, I don't know about this one. Support Z abilities. Boosts the stats of battle members regardless of tag or episode just by having the supporter in your deck. What this is saying is basically, if let's just open up, I don't know, UI Goku. We take a look at UI Goku Z ability. If Universe Rep, Sun Family, or God Key, 38% base strike attack, 38% base strike defense. So this UI Goku with his Z ability is providing these base stats to these tags. So if you are on one of these 3 tags, you will be receiving these stat buffs. What this is talking about with the support Z abilities is these support characters. Again, you have six slots of supporting slots in your deck. So you're going to have a full team, essentially, 6 supporting characters on your support deck. Each of those support characters, it sounds like, are going to have a Z ability. Not only that, they're going to have Z abilities that are not restricted to certain tags. So Dende, let's just take Dende as an example. Dende could be giving 38% strike attack and 38% of strike defense, no condition. So Dende, by just being in your support deck, could potentially be giving 38% stats to the entire team. That's like a Zenkai buff, essentially. But a Zenkai buff that applies to every character, which is ridiculous considering you have 6 of those. I think what's probably going to happen is these Z abilities are probably going to be pretty weak in terms of the actual numbers. I don't expect Dende to be coming out with 38% strike attack and defense for his support Z ability. Dende, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are going to be, and this is why I don't want to go overboard with this, because we just don't know what the details are going to be. But I think it's probably going to be something like, probably like this, the Legends Limited Z ability, where it's just 10% to stats. It might even be like less than that. It might even be like 5%, 7%. But I mean, Dende just sitting on your support, in your support deck, potentially giving 8% to strike attack and defense to the entire team, multiply that by 6, and all of a sudden you have 48% to stats to the team. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's essentially a Zenkai buff to the entire team, just from your support deck. So this is a pretty important thing, and I think this probably will factor in, most likely, the level of your support character, which is something I think we're probably going to talk about next here, which I think is going to be the most controversial part of this. Yeah, here is the most controversial part of this, and again, this is something that I don't want to go too far in on, until we actually see how this works, but it doesn't sound great on paper here. Obtain supporters in 2 different ways, via summons and via the shop, aka they want you to spend your CC on these characters, or they want you to spend real money on these characters. But when they say the shop, they mean spending money or spending CC, because they did talk about that they're opening up a new type of shop where you can exchange your chrono crystals for items. So there are a few question marks with this, but we'll see. So via summons, get your first copy of a supporter from summons. Do they actually explain this on a slide? Via the shop, after getting your first copy, buy summon tickets from the shop that lets you obtain them directly. I just want to see if there's any extra explanation here. Plan for September 2025. Okay, that's it. So they don't actually explain this. This is the shop, by the way, the Chrono Crystal shop. There will be a new shop where you can buy items with Chrono Crystals. Summon tickets that guarantee a supporter, as well as special titles, sleeves, and backgrounds, and more available. Lineup updates automatically after a set amount of time, or update it manually by spending a certain item. So for the supporters, you have to pull the first copy of the supporter, and then you can get extra levels on the supporters by buying the summon tickets from this Chrono Crystal shop to get guaranteed extra copies of them. That's the way it sounds here. They did do a supplementary explanation here. Let me actually turn on CC and we can see what this is. So let's see here. First, you'll need to obtain the base copy as a drop from summons. They won't be available in every summon, but we plan to include them in summons other than Ultra Rising summons. So they will not be available on Ultra Banners, which is just another way of making Ultra Banners even less valuable. I think what this is going to look like, and again, we don't know, so I'm not gonna, assume anything, but what it sounds like is the supporters will just be added onto banners that we would have gotten anyway. So let's just say September 17th is when we should be expecting our first LF character, or first new banner featuring new characters in September. That banner will have probably a 1% sparking on it. It will probably have an LF character on it. But then in addition to those characters, it will also have supporters on there. And then I think what will probably happen is every banner we get from that point, other than Ultra Banners, will have supporters just on the banner. Not sure what the rates are going to be. Not sure, how many levels are you going to get for getting a supporter from the banner. We don't know any of the details yet, but that to me is what this sounds like. You'll be able to get these supporter copies from banners that, would just release anyway. I don't think, again, we don't know, but I don't think there's going to be designated supporter banners. Like, let's just say they drop 6 supporters in September. I don't think they're dropping a banner specifically with the 6 supporters all on there, and that is like the only lineup on the banner. I think it's going to be, we get a Mega Rising banner, we get the 2 1% sparkings in the Mega Rising banner, and then, we have like the typical other featured characters, but then there's also these supporters on here. We get an LF banner, we get the 1% sparking, we get the LF character. Then, in addition to that, there's also the list of supporters also on the banner. So I think they just are giving these out on the banners as an extra incentive to be summoning on these banners. That's what I think, but we'll have to wait and see. So that really is kind of a quick breakdown of how the supporters features work. The big controversy, I think, surrounding this feature is certainly going to be this part, via the shop and via summons. I imagine eventually they will give out free supporters. I don't know if that's ever going to be a thing. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I imagine eventually we're going to be getting free supporter characters. But at least initially here, they are only going to be obtainable via summoning. And then you get the extra levels on the supporters via summoning for more copies of them, or by purchasing the summon tickets from the Chrono Crystal shop. So it's going to be CC intensive. It's going to be real money intensive. It's going to be, whale, very focused and incentivized around paying players whales, not surprising. I mean, this is really what I expected. I remember when they first introduced the supporter concept, you guys can go back to the video where they first announced this, and I'm like, this is most likely a way for them to be able to make more money. by adding these as either new banners or just putting them on banners that exist, and that's exactly what's happening here. What I'm going to be most interested in looking at as this comes out in September, as we get the details, as we get the numbers, the rates, how strong are these supporters, what are they doing, what I'm going to be looking for, let me pull this slide back up here. We know that these supporters have levels 1 through 99. What I'm going to be looking at, how strong is a level 1 supporter compared to a level 99 supporter? And how much does it actually take as an investment to get a supporter from level 1 to level 99? AKA, how pay to win is the system? I want to know, how pay to win is the system? I mean, yeah, for me, someone like me, I'll probably end up getting the supporter to level 99 initially just to see what it's like. But I'm genuinely like, how much of a difference is it going to make if you have a supporter at level 1 versus level 99? Is it a huge difference? Is it really not really make a difference? Is it more so for the cosmetic of the character with the different art? Is it just kind of like a negligible thing? Do the Z abilities not really go up? Again, these are things we just don't know right now. So I'm not going to jump the gun and criticize this to hell and back because we just don't know enough about the system yet. However, if we get into September and we learn that, okay, a level 99 supporter is 8 times as effective as a level 1 supporter, and it takes, you know, like 80,000 CC to get a supporter from level 1 to level 99, hell yeah, I'm going to criticize that. I'll be all over that. I won't hold back. But I don't want to jump the gun and say, oh, this system is terrible, oh, it doesn't accomplish what it needs to accomplish. I am not surprised, I don't think anybody else should be surprised, that they are prioritizing the paying players in this situation. That's not surprising. It's not. And this is something that was obvious from the get-go. Why are they implementing this function? Number one, I think it genuinely does make the game more interesting, at least if it's executed in the way I think it should be executed. But another layer to this is it gives them another revenue stream. Like, this is a new system that they can monetize in the game. That should not be a shock to anybody. But it's to what level are you incentivized to spend because of the system? That is what I'm going to be looking at, and that is what I will criticize if it is very egregious. And by the way, I think this actually could be a way for them to potentially buff some older characters. We have Zenkai Awakenings in the game. We have unique equipments in the game for specific characters, right? Like, you know, LF17 gets unique equipment. We have unique equipment specifically for Ultra characters, Platinum equipments that only one character in the game can use. This is another way, theoretically, they could potentially buff specific characters. Now, this is probably going to be a thing where, because you'd summon for this, it probably would need to be some kind of like loophole thing to get around some of the gacha laws where you can't have, for example, you can't have a summonable character that needs another specific summonable character to do something. That you legally cannot do that. But they could, for example, let's just say like Demon King Piccolo, they want to buff LF Demon King Piccolo with the supporter feature. What if they gave out like a supporter piano, right? Piano is one of Demon King Piccolo's children. What if there was a summonable supporter piano that if one of your allies has Demon King Piccolo in their name, he gives your team like 4 Dragon Balls or something. Like, I don't know, they could do some crazy stuff like that. It's possible. But this is a way they could also buff some characters that really need help a lot. Evolution Blue Vegeta. What if there's a Kaba supporter, right? Because these supporters don't necessarily all have to be characters that can't fight. They could do a Goku supporter. They could do a Gohan supporter, a Frieza supporter, King Cold supporter. They could do any character for this, but they potentially could drop like a Kaba supporter that specifically is targeting characters. Like, what if it's like, I don't know, let's go back over here. Because we could do something like this. Watch this. This ever loads. We're going to be stuck in the infinite loop here. I was going to pull up... okay, I guess give me a second here. Okay, so here we exited the infinite loop here. The website's chugging along today. They could do something where they drop like a supporter Kaba character that maybe is like, if you're a universe rep Vegeta that is on this Super Saiyan God SS tag, you get like 40% more damage guard, 40% more damage, and type neutral or something for like the next 30 counts after this activates. They could do stuff like that, right? They could specifically target characters that have other variants of that character. So for example, Universe Rep Vegeta, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, there's a free-to-play Vegeta that has those tags. So that could work. That could be a thing that they do. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility that they have with the supporter feature, and I think it actually has a lot of ways that this could go very well. I think there's a lot of leeway for this mechanic. I think there's a lot of innovation they can have with this. There's, again, I think a lot of the functionality this is going to have in PvP is specific targeted counters to characters. Maybe you really hate fighting Namek Goku. Maybe there's, I don't know, a Dragon Ball Saga TN supporter who lets you do like 40% more damage against Goku characters, or a character whose name includes Goku. You really hate fighting full power Frieza. There's a character who deletes enemy cards when the enemy uses their active gauge. Again, characters and abilities like that, that is where this, I think, mechanic can really shine. We'll leave it there. Let me know down below what you guys think of the supporter system. To me, it does look pretty interesting, but again, it's kind of just how off the deep end are they going to go with this? We'll see. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one.